Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. It is I, the notoriously sanctimonious RMB, and this is a special holiday Saturday evening Robservations chat. And I'm very honored and privileged to have a good friend and co-worker, a visionary, I would like to say, that I have worked with really for the first time, a man who I've admired for years. A man, no, it's true. We got a love fest going on, but I'm proud of the work that we've done together. But let me just say, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. LUKAS KENDALL here on Robservations. This is the second live chat I've ever done. The first one was with Dave Parker, the director of The Hills Run Red, a movie that I produced. And I'm very happy to have Mr. LUKAS KENDALL with us, the writer, director, and producer of, well, it started out, he wrote a feature script called SKYFIGHTER, which is an incredible feature-length science fiction thriller that we would all love. It's an imagination connoisseur fest from beginning to end. But he's going to direct it. He wrote it to be his directorial debut. But here's the thing. Homeboy here has never directed anything. So none of the money people are going to be, oh, okay, LUKAS, here's a couple of $1 million, $5 million, $10 million to direct your first film that's full of special effects and on a limited set. It's going to be difficult. So we're not going to give you anything, but if you directed something, maybe we will. So being the resourceful gent that he was, he went and turned his feature script into a short, and he crowdfunded that short film. And he enlisted me to edit that short film, and lo and behold, it's finished. His proof of concept short, SKYFIGHTER, is done. He shot it in August. We worked on it all the way up, till March? It was done in March?
I thought I'm like Teller. I don't talk.
Oh, he doesn't talk. But he's going to talk. But that's just...
We finished at the end of February. Yes.
Finished at the end of February. Now, first of all, before we begin, even before you were making movies, I admired... You basically explained to the people out there what you did with your love of soundtrack albums and how you began your career.
Okay. First of all right, I am one of you. I grew up on Martha's Vineyard.
You're an imagination connoisseur.
I am an imagination before there was an internet. So this is 1990. I'm 15 years old. My parents are getting divorced. I love Star Trek and Star Wars. I'm so unhappy. And I want to communicate with the world that loves the same things I do. And one of the little areas that I love that I couldn't find anything on was the music to films.
Soundtracks.
Yeah, soundtracks. John Williams, James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith. Loved it. But this was back in the day that if you wanted to know what movies James Horner did, you couldn't go to IMDb. You had to go to the video store and flip over the boxes.
Right.
And that's how I rented Krull. And that's how I rented Brainstorm. And that's how...
By the way, yeah. Brainstorm has a great score.
It does. And so it's a different era. And
Perez Saraband.
Yes. And I wrote a letter to Starlog saying, anybody want to start a club about soundtracks, write me. And 11 people wrote me, and I started sending them a newsletter.
You were 15.
I was 15, 16. And I just kept sending them a newsletter. And then I went off to college, and it turned into like a little...
No, wait. You're 15 years old. That means you were a sophomore in high school?
I guess so, yeah.
Sophomore. So, and then you went off to college. No, there were 3 years.
Well, yeah, I was
for 3 years in high school. You started a soundtrack newsletter for 11 people.
Well, it gradually more people found it. So it would be like 10, and then the next issue would be 20, and then 50. So I had to figure out how to scale it. So first it was just printed out of the computer, and then I would use a Xerox copier at the school. Then it was too many, so I had to use a Xerox copier at the Tisbury printer. Hello, Chris Decker. And then I had to use an offset printing company at Amherst and figure out how to mail it because there's no internet.
But as an imagination connoisseur, or let's say geek,
whatever you want.
The viewer, we're all imagination connoisseurs. Pre-internet, you started. Would you say it was the first, perhaps the only soundtrack newsletter?
There were periodicals prior to mine. They were usually from Europe. They were quarterly, and I tried very ambitiously to do the first one that would be monthly. And at the time, it was the first one that was active in the United States, and so I could. It was such a different era. Like now, we go on the computer, and everyone on Twitter is talking about, "Whoa, someone's cast as Batman," And like it took months to find out what was going on. You had to read Starlog or Cinefantastique to even learn that there would be another Star Trek movie. So like to be a monthly, that was like that was like instantaneous to people.
What did you write? Like, did you write articles? Were you able to interview composers?
Yes, I interviewed. I remember on the phone interviewing Christopher Young and John Scott and Randy Newman. He was funny, and Danny Elfman. And then I would take trips out here
as a kid
because people thought it was so amusing. This sort of upstart, and the thing had like a kind of punky, snotty tone to it, probably too snotty in retrospect. So people like were kind of amused by this kid, literally kid doing this, and they would like say, "Oh, if you come out here or you come meet me, and I'll interview. You can interview me, or you can interview my client, or you can come to a scoring session." So I went to the recording session for Cause and Effect,
the TNG episode.
Yeah, very good episode. That was the first scoring session I've been to
in your life.
Yeah.
So the first scoring session you ever went to was for the Next Generation.
Yeah, but who's been to any scoring sessions?
Well, yeah, right. But so now, how old were you? This had to be between 97 and 94. I mean, 87 and 94. So Cause and Effect was season 5.
Yeah, it was like 92, 90. Yeah, it was in there.
What was that like for you?
It was great.
Going to your first scoring session?
It was amazing. I mean, it's people want to hear this?
Yes. We gotta come on. They love this. Right. They like to hear the journey.
I mean, I'm happy to be on television, but
besides, it's my show.
Okay. Well,
I want to know. I'm finding out.
All right. So the weird thing about Star Trek music at the time is that the producers hated music, and so they would they had to like hector their composers, don't write any tunes. Because we think of Star Trek music and we think da 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 all the tunes.
Dun, 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 dun,
exactly.
Dun, dun,
right.
Dun, dun,
but at the time they thought that if their music had a lot of tunes, it would be too corny. So they had these two composers who were excellent composers who alternated, and they basically said, don't write any tunes and don't use any themes and don't have a lot of percussion. So
which is kind of the antithesis.
It's very weird. And the composers thought it was weird. And then they're like, well, it's the client. We'll do what the client wants. So there was a producer named Wendy Noose who became Mrs. Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, she married Patrick Stewart.
And she would sit in a chair and they would do a cue and she'd go, got a little big there at the end. Can you? And he'd go, yeah, you got it. And so the end that used to be da-da would just be da-da. And so they would just go through this process. And I remember I sat in her chair once and she's like, that's my chair.
So
I'm like, sorry, lady.
When I met you, when you first came out here.
In the garage of the Larry Flint building.
Right. We were upstairs.
No, it was for the Sci-Fi universe.
Right.
In a car.
Oh, right. That's right.
And I was like, who is this guy who looks like young Captain Kirk saying, whoa, I love you, dude. You're so good. I was like,
well, wait a minute.
Who is this guy?
I have to say that he turned his little newsletter into a real magazine. And it was a magazine that was sort of essential reading. It was called Film Score Monthly magazine.
Oh, and all right, by the way, every single print issue we ever did has been scanned and is free at our website.
Oh, what is the website?
Filmscoremonthly.com. And if you go, I forget where it is, but if you find print archive, you can look at everything from the first mimeographed ones to the later ones that were more like a real magazine.
It was an incredible magazine. And
it was fun.
In the 90s, when was the first time you went from a newsletter to an actual magazine?
It was gradual, but the first color cover was in 96 or 97 when I moved out here. I moved out. So I graduated from Amherst, smart.
You're smart.
Yeah, I'm smart. So it's like when I saw that crappy show Studio 60 in the Sunset Strip and and what's her name, Amanda Pete's wearing the Amherst College sweatshirt. I'm like, she went to Amherst. And I'm like, she's not real. And so I came out. So I graduated in, Memorial Day, like this weekend.
Sure.
And then I was home for that summer. And around August, my mom goes, "You're leaving soon, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I am." So I packed it up and I came out here October 3rd, 96. And then shortly after that, I started doing the color covers.
So that's how I met him when he came out in 96, 97. We were writing for Sci-Fi Universe magazine, putting on the Universe Awards. And your magazine was very impressive. I mean, I would say it was very erudite. It was very highbrow. Wasn't it? That's how I thought of it.
It was,
I mean, no one else was doing a soundtrack magazine.
I don't know. I look back at it and I think it was kind of juvenile, but I think we definitely had a lot of ambition to do something like criticism for this kind of mistaken or not mistaken, but this sort of overlooked aspect of movies. And it's a very hard, I'll tell you, the amount of time I spent thinking about movie music and thinking about how to communicate about the music helped enormously when we're making a movie. Because when you understand the function of music in a film, what the single most important thing you start to understand is storytelling tone.
Right. Okay.
And when you understand tone, you can work backwards, whether it's our editing or the visual effects or directing actors. It's the hardest thing to do, to figure out how to put that music on the film and have it communicate what you want. But once you figure that out, which has chords, it has, there's no words, but then you figure out culturally what you're doing and in terms of the emotion, then you can work backwards and you can actually learn how to construct something. So it's a very educational thing to learn about. Well, so we tried to make it as good as we can. And my friends, I'm still friends with those guys to this day, like Jeff Bond and Joseph Kordiak and the Kaplan brothers. We tried hard, but it was hard because it became a record label at the same time.
Well, now hang on, you're getting ahead of yourself, because I want to touch on this. He turned Film Score Monthly into a record label, into the preeminent. I mean, I grew up with Varese Sarabande, and I first started buying Varese Sarabande's soundtrack vinyl because I saw it advertised in Starlog. That was the first time, and I bought like Phantasm and Goblin Score for Dawn of the Dead.
I bought the Star Wars trilogy. The Utah.
Right. And so soundtracks were a big deal post Star Wars for anyone. But you started a record label, and you became, I thought you leapfrogged even Varese Sarabande, and you became the preeminent soundtrack album producer in the world.
Well, that's not true, because these people might see it. It's true. No, it's not true, because there are other folks there are other people who were doing it before me and are still doing it.
Well,
now.
sure, but you, I mean, you.
All right, I'll answer the question.
Okay,
I'll answer the question. So here's what I did that was unique, and it was kind of innovative, and then other people caught on. Sure. I was the first person to have a magazine that was making it like a record club. So it's like, here's the magazine, and here's the CD of the month, or the 2 CDs of the month that you could buy or not buy.
Right.
And so it was a natural way to promote the label. And the other thing I did that was kind of innovative is that in the old days, and everyone who collected soundtracks know that, like, you didn't get all the music.
Right.
So you'd get this record and you're like, they didn't leave, they left off, like on Star Trek 2, they have the music on the original record for when the Enterprise and the Reliant comes out of the fog, and then they both shoot each other. But then the next piece of music, when it comes up, it's not on the record.
Right.
It's like, well, why isn't it on the record? Because they didn't have room.
And also the way sometimes album soundtracks were sequenced.
They're all out of order. So I was the first person, because the people producing them thought, it's really weird to listen just to like I call them documents. And I used to tell my business partners, look, it's not a record. It's not even meant to be listened to. We were ahead of our time, because now you can put them in iTunes and make your own playlists.
Right.
This is before iTunes.
Sure.
So it's before Napster. So I said, let's just give them every last note, and who cares if it's boring? Because I know that as a fan, I always wanted to hear that little 20-second incidental, silly little throwaway, like in Star Wars when the droid blows it, R5 blows its top. Da 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 da. It's not on the record, but it's like, you got to have it.
And then I remember when they finally did release all of the music for Star Wars, and I was so used to the original albums that when you heard them in order, in sequence, it was weird. It was a very weird.
That's another topic. But so I was kind of innovative, because I did these giant nerd editions, and it was like, you remember in my Blue Heaven, where Steve Martin's character says, the point isn't tipping. The point is over tipping.
I worked on that movie.
Did you?
I did work on my Blue.
So it's like we did these big booklets, and we told them what every piece of music was, and they were they were really like these collector's editions that really were for hardcore collectors.
But now you put stuff out, like when I was a kid, one of the hardest vinyl albums the Logan's Run soundtrack.
I did.
That vinyl was so hard to come by. I don't know why. I started collecting soundtrack albums afterwards, but then the vinyl. You put out the definitive Logan's Run CD. You put out so many CDs. The Omega Man. You put out the Omega Man. As a matter of fact, I called you when I was working on Superman Returns. There was I think somebody in the art department wanted to get the Omega Man soundtrack, and it had been sold out. It was gone. It was out of print. and I called you up, and I think you sent me one.
Well, we used to have warehouse finds.
Right.
Look what I found. I found a box, and you want it? It's only $200.
But you sent one to me in Australia, and I was able to, the Heroes, whatever.
I remember one time I came in, and there was an order form from the Wachowskis. I was like, what's this? And I was like, oh, yeah, they ordered. I don't know what they ordered. And then one time I had an order. It was an order. Guy ordered for The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I took his name, and he goes, Terry, okay, Austin. I said, is this Terry Austin, the world's greatest comic book inker ever? And he goes, well, I don't know about that, but I am a comic book inker. I said, you're the greatest inker of all time. I talked to him for like 20. He loved The Man from U.N.C.L.E. music. I have to do a Marco Rubio. Are you ready?
Do a Marco Rubio. So okay, so I'm gonna question you.
Is that too obscure?
No, it's not too obscure. How many soundtrack albums did you produce?
At my label, 250. I got to 250, and then I said, oh, this is enough.
250 soundtrack albums.
But I've done another at least 100 for other co-producing and consulting. I do want to plug my former competitors who all became my friends, and
please,
and I've been working for them. So there's one called La La Land Records,
who put out the single greatest. Sorry, but you had a big hand in making it happen. The original Star Trek, the original series,
the giant,
the La La Land records,
15 discs.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, it's funny. I've got La La Land. La La Land put this out.
Yep.
If you don't have this, if you don't have this, this is the La La Land complete John Williams Superman the movie score. It has been completely remastered for what was it, for the original 4-track tapes?
No, they had the 24 tracks.
24 tracks. This is unbelievable. I know people like physical CDs. Why would I buy those?
No, that's great.
La La Land Records is doing the Lord's work.
And then there's Entrada up in Oakland. Doug Fake, known him forever. He's been doing this since the 80s. There is Verez Saraband, and now this is very. There's a friend of mine, Jose Benitez, and Quartet Records.
Right.
They're in Spain, and now I'm doing one of these television things where I can't. I won the Oscar and I can't remember who to thank. There's a Bruce Kimmel at Kritzerland. There's like there's a handful of boutiques. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people I've known for 20 years are going to be like, how could you?
But where I wanted to go with this was you really honed your skills as a writer during this time.
That's actually true.
You wrote, all right. You try, of course, I wouldn't lie. I'm not lying to my audience.
It's the other thing that's helpful. Like, all right, if you're going to write a screenplay, it's story structure, it's character, it's all these things, but it's also just simple. It's screenplay writing is like anti-writing because it's so spare.
Right.
So it's communication. So you're learning how to take the ideas that you have and put them in the right order, and then express them as quickly and as simply and as directly as you can.
Yeah.
And that's so when we were doing. So I was writing like magazine articles. Journalists are smart. It's like one of the duh. But no. My dad said once, you should journalists. They're smart.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I know. Because you have to be, because it's hard. You have to write fast, and then to do these liner notes where I'm trying to tell people, like writing about. I don't think that thing whoever said about writing about music is like dancing about architecture or talking about music.
Right.
I think it's not. I think you can do it.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's very difficult to write about film music. You have to know about film. You have to know about music. You have to know about film music. Not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then you're trying to narrate something that they can't look at.
Sure.
It can only exist in time. So if you're trying to tell them, I always thought that I always had my CD booklets written in a certain way that if I was listening to the record and I thought, wow, this piece is really cool. I really like this track. What is it? You could find it very quickly in the booklet, and it would say disc 2, track 8, the kitchen. Right. And this is when they have a fight in the kitchen. And that's why you hear these trumpets doing this thing, because they're playing this theme. So it's like these little haikus to just boil it down to the simplest possible thing. So it's always about, it's the who, what, where, why stuff. Mm-hmm. You want to know, what's the music, what's the movie, what's the action, what's the idea, what's the theme. And there's a way to do it so that it makes sense. And then because every other way won't make sense.
Right.
So it was highly, highly instructive for writing screenplays.
So you transitioned in your 20s and 30s. You went from being a journalist, a music journalist, to being a record producer and producing, like you said, 250 albums for your own company, 100 albums for other people. But during this time, were you always thinking about making movies yourself?
I was. Like, remember
You're nervous.
The Duran Duran guy in that terrible, what's that concert? The View to a Kill, where his voice cracks.
Oh yeah,
it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, it's not good.
All right,
but you always wanted to make movies.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't have the confidence to. I didn't go to film school. I was never someone who thought like yeah, I should. I didn't want to. I don't know. I had felt like I didn't have anything to say until I was older.
You had a lot. Okay, that makes sense. That's good.
I didn't really know. I didn't have the confidence to write. I didn't have the confidence to direct. I didn't know what I wanted to say. So basically, I taught myself to write the best way possible, which is I spent 10 years writing the world's most horrible screenplays. No, I mean,
but you learned.
Yeah,
you learned.
I did. And I had a friend and mentor, which is essential. I'm Robert Nathan, who I met through the Amherst College Alumni Network.
Okay.
He was, I saw him speak once at the college, and then I was watching all these Law and Orders where he was one of the original producers on Law and Order when it was Michael Moriarty, when it was like the hardcore, really good show.
Okay. So he's legit. Real credits, very, very seasoned, hundreds of episodes under his belt.
I cold called him out of I said, I've been watching Law and Order, and I told him how great he was. And so of course he was like, yeah, I'll come meet me at Paramount.
Really?
So yeah. Well, the alumni, it's the secret handshake.
Sure. But did you have to convince him that you were okay? Like did you say, listen, I'm not some schmo off the street? That's
why my dad spent $200,000. No, because they see Amherst College, and I'm letting you in on the truth of the unfairness of this world. The reality is
that's why I love Lucas.
He's
the most scrupulously honestly, he's the most scrupulously honest person I know.
I'm way too candid.
No,
so
it's great.
Look, I mean, I had 1410 on my SATs. I was doing this weird side job. This, I was a magazine publisher when I was a kid, and I had this unique zip code, Martha's Vineyard. So I got into Amherst College, early decision. And then once you go there, it's not that you're smarter, but that you have this access to this alumni network.
Right.
And you can call and say, I'm just this guy, but Amherst College, they go, all right, come over and we'll have coffee or whatever. Well, so I went over so Robert Nathan he had a development deal with Paramount at the time. And this also ties into the Geek Singularity. His office was in the Dreyer building, which was right outside the Star Trek stage.
Right.
So he was in there chain smoking. His assistant was in there chain smoking. And I'm like, dying. And outside are the Voyager trailers.
Right. Okay.
And his assistant and Robert Beltran hated each other. And he would mess with her by leaving he'd leave loud music on in his trailer and make the door open.
Right.
And I heard all these stories. I'd say, you don't like Robert Beltran? She said, apparently she was not the only one. But then another time I went to visit him at Paramount, and I go by a trailer. This is later when they're doing Enterprise. Right. And I see, I look in the hatch is open to this trailer, and I see 2 ears and a cigarette. That's Jolene.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, so you.
Oh, and then I pass. This is what a moron I am. I pass Jerry Ryan in full Borg outfit, with a giant bosom.
Yeah.
And I go, nice outfit. And she's like, I got a split second of side-eye daggers. And I was like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that was bad, Lucas.
But I was 26.
Still, you should have more game than that. Especially, you could have said anything to her. You could have said you liked her indelible performance as the first humanized Borg we've seen.
Yeah. All I remember is that I'm short. Anyone shorter than me is short. And I think she was, they're all tiny.
Yeah. So
I saw her one time at Larchmont with Brandon Braga.
Yeah, well, they lived close to there.
Yeah.
They were in Iron for a long time. So you did want to produce movies. Now you actually did produce a film.
I did.
So tell us what is the genesis of that? How did that come about?
God. So I am the producer of one of the only dozen NC-17 movies ever made.
Well, that's promising.
Right, this is how stupid I was. This is how naive and stupid I was. I had of all the things in this world I hate, and my grandmom always said, "Oh, you only hate Hitler," but nonetheless, I hate found footage horror movies. And then I thought, I got a great idea for one. And it would be, there's actually in the weird genre of internet porn, there are these like, they bring on the amateur guy to have sex with a porn star.
Sure.
And let's say I stumbled across one of these. And I thought,
and you decided to make a feature film.
No, I thought, what if it goes bad? And they're like making fun of the dude. And I was like, what if they make fun of the wrong guy and he kills them all and it's all on camera? I thought, wow, that's awesome.
I like that. Okay.
And I told Robert Nathan, he said, that's where the culture is at. And I said, I know. So we wrote it. So
and what's it called?
Lucky Bastard. And you can see it for free on my YouTube channel. Just Google Lucky Bastard full film. It's 9 minutes long and
9 minutes?
90
minutes long.
And we decided to make it.
And it's NC-17. It's on YouTube?
I put it on YouTube because it was basically impossible to distribute.
And it's not.
It's never going to recoup.
Never recoup. How much did you spend on it? Can you say? Okay.
It's not my dad's money.
No, never going to recoup.
And Dad is so angry. My dad's been angry at me like twice in my life. And
this is a lingering anger. But here,
but it paid off because I learned how to make a movie.
But wait a minute.
And it's great too, by the way.
Okay, it actually, I have to say.
Actually, I showed it to Rob and he goes, dude, this is amazing.
I was amazed by it. I actually knew some of the people in it. It
has your femme fatales crew.
Yeah, I had two femme fatales that I directed, Catherine and Betsy Rue.
Betsy Rue is amazing.
Betsy Rue is amazing.
Catherine's amazing. And Catherine McManus and Jay Paulson.
Yeah, it has a good cast. It's actually a very good movie.
All right, so here's what killed us. Like,
wait a minute, let me go back for a second.
No,
so you borrowed the money from your dad to make this movie?
Borrow is let's say it's an advance from an inheritance.
An advance to your inheritance. However,
he was a doctor in Martha's Vineyard. He did okay.
So how did you go about it? First of all, how long did it take from the time you wrote the script to the time you made how much
Robert
time?
And I wrote the script, and then I think we wrote it that spring and we just shot it. He directed it that May or April, and then it was done by that summer. And then I thought, I'm rich. And then we showed it to the ICM film sales department.
Right.
And this lady watches it with her colleagues. It's over. We're like, you're going to make us rich, right? And she goes, it's very interesting. And ICM cannot represent this movie. And Robert goes, why not? And I'm like, oh, we're dead. And she goes, because it's pornography. And he's like, but it's not. It's about. And I said, exact quote. I said, but we've got this great plan to market it through churches. And the whole room cracks up because we're dead. I mean, we were dead. So I'm like, oh no. And because I realized, because we wanted it to seem like you really were on a porn set. So there's no actual sex, but we needed full frontal nudity and we needed the filthiest language and simulate. It's just, I needed it to feel real. And unfortunately, like we realized it's unrated. It could only be unrated. And then I realized people are going to think this actually is pornography. I said, there's only one way I can show the world that this is meant as a piece of art, to get it rated. So I said, let's see what they rate it. And they came back NC-17 and the lady goes, do you want some advice on how to submit it you can resubmit it indefinitely.
Right.
I said, yeah, sure. And it was like, she got to like minute 3 of the movie. And I said, lady, it's enough. I'm not changing a frame. Thank you. So I didn't change a frame. And it was basically, no one wanted it. And I had a friend at Gravitas who agreed to distribute it. I spent more money than the movie cost to try and four-wall it. I was such a moron.
Now explain to everybody out there what is
so that's
four-walling.
basically you self-distribute it into theaters because I thought it's genius, and if only the world could see the genius, and if only the New York Times can review it, we're going to be.
I said the term four-walling is how
you rent all 4 walls.
Yeah, 4 walls of the theater.
Yeah, so the New York Times gave it to their like 5th string, I hate people reviewer who hated it, and like the LA Times loved it. And like if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it actually is like 52% fresh. Because there was 30, like the Variety gave it to a kid who thought it was homophobic because they used the F word.
Oh.
And like Robert, who's gay, wanted to, like, if he had a gun and that kid was in the room, he would have shot him. Robert's like, you're calling me homophobic? No, the characters are homophobic. And they all get killed for it.
Right.
It's just like, you just can't. That's what I learned though. Like I wanted to make something that was just so insane. And unfortunately, it's a slasher movie with no blood. It's an art movie with fake porn, and nobody knows what it is. And so there's like 40% of the, just like 40% of the public will be behind Trump if he does shoot someone. Like 40% of the public looked at this movie. It's not the same 40%.
Right.
And said like, you know, on letterbox.com, can I rate it below a half a star? Like they actually wanted to murder the people who made this movie. And then, because it's the weird,
I didn't want to murder you.
No, but it's the weirdest thing. Like usually these things, when you get rated at Letterboxd, there's like a curve.
Right.
And ours is like it's almost a straight line. Because people just, it's so polarizing. People don't know what to make of it.
But I think what's important to remember is that you did make this movie.
Yeah.
You got it made and you learned a great deal about the process.
You know who taught me? Jim Wynorski.
Jim Wynorski, who made The Phantom Empire.
The great one.
Chopping Mall.
Because I had a meeting with Jim because I wanted to make movies. And he said, I'll teach you how to make a low budget movie. And he said, you know, it's like he told me all these, like, you know, find like a burnt out building. You can make a movie in that. And he was like describing how you make all these exploitation movies. And I said, well, you know, that's not really where my heart is. I mean, I wanted to do something a little more dramatic, like, you know, like a play.
Right.
You like plays, right? And he goes, plays are boring. And if Jim's watching this, he knows he hates plays. So here's my rule. I will not say anything on camera that I wouldn't say to people's face. So I'm candid, but I'm not mean. And there's like if you and I were just talking without the camera, like I would talk ill. I would speak ill about tons of people, but I'm just being candid. Like Jim Wynorski hates plays.
Right.
But Jim Wynorski is a great guy. He's a terrific micro budget, low budget exploitation filmmaker.
Yeah.
He knows how to shoot
a lot of movies.
He was telling us these stories. Robert Nathan had never directed, and he was like, you know, like, how do you do this? And Jim's like, okay, here's what you do, and we worked with this great DP, Clay Westerveld, because it's found footage, so it's like a whole other way of designing your shots.
Right.
And Jim said, like, here's a lesson Roger Corman taught him. Like, how do you shoot a phone booth? Do you know the answer?
No.
And Jim said, my first answer was like, well, I guess you open the door and shoot in the phone booth. Wrong. You shoot diagonally, so there's depth.
Oh, well, if you didn't ask me about a phone booth and you asked me about a restaurant,
yes,
I would have told you.
You know that. So
what I would say is that never shoot
yeah.
anybody up against a wall.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah. So where were we?
Well, okay. So where we're going now, we want to talk about the movie that I worked on with you. But so you went through this experience and it didn't turn out the way you'd hoped. But you did have the experience.
No, it turned out my wife ready to murder me.
Yeah, well,
hi, honey.
He's got a very nice wife and two beautiful twin daughters.
Yeah, I love my wife.
So, but you did it. You actually went on and made this movie, and you had it's a learning experience. So you kept writing, and I have to say, to be quite honest, I've read a number of Lucas's scripts, and all of the scripts that I've read that he's written are actually excellent scripts. And when he wrote this script. We'll get to SKYFIGHTER now.
Oh, sure.
He wrote this script, SKYFIGHTER, which is a science fiction thriller that's set in the 26th century, and it's basically set on a two-person space fighter bomber. And it's two people, a man and a woman, and I don't want to ruin what's going on, but there's thriller elements, there's noir elements.
It's a drama.
It's a drama.
That looks like
it's a thriller sci-fi drama. It's really intriguing.
Folks, not wearing pants, shorts. I blew it. I came over to Rob's house thinking, I don't wear pants. No one's ever going to know.
It's okay. Sure. California. It's warm now.
I've got shorts on.
But one of what I thought was great about SKYFIGHTER is it's the perfect low budget sci-fi thriller that you watch and you don't feel like it's constrained by its budget because it's set in space. You're on a spaceship. It harked back. It's not like the Terminator, but the way that the Terminator grabbed you from the very beginning. And look, I'm a huge fan of great science fiction B movies, and I think the 80s movies like The Hidden and movies like Terminator and movies like Battle Beyond the Stars, or things that they felt much bigger than they were, and they became genre classics. I saw SKYFIGHTER as that. And I thought it was really well-constructed script. It was really intriguing. And what made it interesting was it's all set, except for the one scene when they land, but it's all set in this contained environment. Yes, well, you can shoot it, and
Yeah,
it was,
it's it's like Locke, but with two people.
right. That's
So he doesn't have to be on the goddamn phone the whole time.
right.
Do you know he's on the phone with Moriarty from Sherlock? Andrew
yes,
Scott. Yeah.
yes.
I love that guy.
And I thought it was the perfect look. And I was interested when I was working on the Axonar project, we had a sound stage and we built this green screen. I was like,
that's a story.
Well, but that was, I mean,
no, a story of when I went up and met Alec.
Oh yeah, well, but it was.
Oh, we can do it after we finish Axonar.
Right,
like 5 years ago.
But I was interested in doing it, and I wanted to produce. I'd produced The Hills Run Red. I always wanted to produce a horror film. I was interested in if we could get it going or raise some money because it could be done for not a lot of money. But then that didn't happen. But Lucas is pushing and pushing and pushing. You found people that were interested in the script. So tell us the story of SKYFIGHTER.
There's more. Sorry. So, and it won't take too long. So all right, Lucky Bastard lost money, but it had many benefits. One is that I'm really proud of the movie.
Right.
And the other is that Robert Nathan really liked working with me, and he's got a real TV career. So I was working on, I had an idea for a sci-fi TV show. I don't want to talk about it, but we wrote it as a pilot, a spec pilot, and it actually got optioned by a studio for a decent amount of money. And then it didn't get made because of a bunch of dumb reasons. Most things don't get made, but I got paid. My family was like, oh, okay, it's not just a hobby. Like, you can get paid for this. So, and I learned, I spent 10 years with Robert telling me how dumb I was for the way I was writing things. And then finally it clicked and I can write well.
Right.
You just have to go, okay, I don't understand what he's saying, but he's written 400 hours of the best television ever, so he must be right. And then finally it's, oh, okay. So I did this project with him in between, and that got me a manager. Because the second they thought, oh, there might be a TV show, oh, I'll represent you. Then they're like, there's someone I know who I knew before. All right, it was my manager was he was at the company that put out the DVD for Lucky Bastard. So work always begets work.
Yes, I've been saying that.
So I got a manager, and my manager was connected with a company that's very fruitfully producing movies. They just wrapped on a film. They're about to shoot another one. I'm going to be a little vague because I don't, until you get the blessing to start naming names, you probably shouldn't. But so they said, hey, we like this script. And I said, well, I want to direct that. And they said, okay. And at the same time, oh God, this is also what happens. Okay. So this management company that my friend manager brings me into, they're trying to sign me because they think there's going to be a TV show.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, we read your feature and that's great. We could get that made tomorrow, next week. We'll start sending that out and sending you as a director. So I signed with them. You sign it online. They go, we were thinking you haven't directed and you haven't written any famous movies and and you really have no background whatsoever in production. So how would you feel about making a demo scene? Just shoot one scene, And I was like, well, guys, the same reason that makes it a very cost-effective movie, there's one set, makes it an extremely uncost-effective short because there's one set. So it's like, so they're like, and so, I tried to see if I could do it for 10 grand, 20 grand. And it was like, oh my God, it was just going to be very expensive. And I said to my manager, well, you're going to pay for 10% of it, right? He goes, get it? Do you get it now? Because he gets 10% of it.
Yeah, I get it.
He's like, that's funny. So look, it's a very, to succeed in this business, you have to be an entrepreneur, and if you're willing to do the work. And I just sort of things were going nowhere, and I needed a career, and I just said, I'm not going to die without having, tried to do this. And I also said, at a certain point after 400 record albums, it's like, I'm done.
Right. So you wanted to transition out.
Yeah. So I just had to do it. So I had this cockamamie idea that the thing about crowdsourcing is that it's just very hard to do. If you're making a Star Trek fan film, they have to like you, or they have to like the thing you're making.
Right.
You can raise money for a Harry Potter fan film, get sued, but you can raise money to do these sort of bootleg type things, or if you were on Battlestar Galactica, if you have got a following, if you've got a Twitter following, if you're a celebrity, or the property's a celebrity. And I had neither of these things, but I did have a following from the people who knew me for 20, 25 years.
Sure.
So I did basically a pop-up store as an Indiegogo campaign. So I went to La La Land Records because these guys all knew me and liked me. I just said, can I have some of your stock? Like stuff that's just in back. It's not going to sell because I've helped you out so many times and vice versa. Can I just have some stuff? And like Taylor White, that Star Trek book, Return to Tomorrow, great book. I said, look, can I just sell like 30 of them? Will you just give me 30? I know you got a pallet.
You should plug that book because it's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
he got a book published that's the greatest Star Trek making.
A friend of mine, Preston Neil Jones, at the time of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, wrote a Cinefantastique cover story about the making of it, which was never published because it was like a book.
Yeah, it was like hundreds and hundreds of pages.
And the guy who ran Cinefantastique was weird. So it just never got published. And it was literally in the back of Preston's closet. And I said, we got to do something. He goes, well, it's in a shoe. It was literally like in these Kinko boxes. So I took it over to Paramount, the Paramount music department, a little bit of sweet irony. I said, can I use your scanner? They're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I scanned it and then we used the OCR. So anyway, I cleaned up this manuscript and I helped to edit it. And then I brought it to, Taylor White knew Preston already. And so Taylor at Creature Features published it. And it's this amazing book with all of these contemporaneous interviews with everybody, pretty much everybody who made Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
While it was getting made.
So they had no idea.
Best Shatner interview ever.
I can't remember.
It was, he talked about Shatner
jogging.
He talked about Sean Connery and how Sean Connery talked about making James Bond real. The book is amazing. It's called Return to Mars.
Yeah, so anyway, you got to get it. So I just went around begging people to give me swag. And then I did like a pop-up store where it was like, please help me make a movie, knowing nobody really cares. It's like, because I can, and that's why when I made a funny video, it's like, yeah. So we care about, all right, so it's a spaceship movie, whatever. It's probably going to suck because most things suck. I mean, most amateurs are, it's like, it's unlikely. I knew it was going to be good. You probably were optimistic.
I was optimistic.
But
well, your short script was good.
The short script was good. So, but I knew that people would give me money based on what were they getting out of it, and what they got out of it is what I gave them all these discount codes to buy like cheaper CDs at La La Land and at Entrada, and buy soundtracks. My friend Ford Thaxton, they were all very generous, really. And then I made like this mountain. It was like the Close Encounters mountain at the La La Land office of all these boxes. And they said, look, honestly, if you ever do this again, we're happy to give you the CDs, but that was too much mail. So,
right.
But I packed the boxes, but I couldn't put the stamps on. So it actually worked. I raised $31,000. And then we went and shot this short. And
now, what was that like? I mean, you now have your money to make this short film, and this short has a lot of visual effects in it. It has 2 actors in it. You've got a voiceover actor. Explain to people your process on making this short film. What was it like for you? Take us through the production.
Well, it was mostly a story of getting incredibly lucky. Because again, through Amherst College, I met the cinematographer. So he's 10 years younger than me, and we met at reunion. And he spoke, and I introduced myself, and I sent him the script. He goes, hey, I'd shoot this. I said, great. So he had a production company with a friend, and they said, this is a cool project, and we'll basically produce it for you for free to be a part of the feature, on spec. And then also I had a relationship with Christine Sheeks, who's a casting director and now producer. Who
I had worked with.
Yeah, who cast, she did Femme Fatales, the second season. She did Boogie Nights, pretty good cast. And so I had a team sort of in place. And because I had gone through this process in Lucky Bastard, I'd seen Robert direct. Right. And I'd heard about, like, how do you direct actors and how you get performance and what you look for. I had a tutorial in how you write something to be shot and then how you make it even better on the stage based on, like, what you know of human beings. So it's all, even though you've got all this hardware and holograms and spaceships, it's really, it's a story of a relationship. It's a story of these 2 characters, and the guy doesn't quite know what's going on, and he doesn't know who to trust. And I won't, there's not much to spoil, but for me, I was very lucky. We had Ben Ralston, who was your production designer at Axonar. Right. And I knew I had you for editing. So it was a good team. And
well, also, where did you, since this is set on a spaceship, and as you pointed out, it's a very expensive short because you have to have a spaceship set.
So
so how'd you find this?
Well,
spaceship?
there's a standing spaceship set called Laurel Canyon Stages, and you've seen it so many times. You've seen it in 2 of the Alien shorts they just did. You've seen it like Emmanuel in Space. I mean, you've seen it a million times because it looks like the Alien set.
Right.
It's right out of that Alien Outland world. And so we rented that and we dressed it, and Ben got all this like airplane junk, and Dan, Dan, this DP is an amazing DP, and I showed him some like of Alien and Empire Strikes Back, and I was like, "Can you make it look like that?" And he's like, "I think I can."
They
and
really did. I mean,
they
put lots of practical lights in the set. They lit it up from the inside, and you shot it anamorphically, so it's widescreen. It's 2:3:9 to 1, so it looks like Star Wars and it looks like Alien.
So they were so sophisticated and so sort of self-producing and self-regulating at the production design and the cinematography and all of the line producing matters that like I could really just be the director and I could just be the creative director. And then I'd have, they said, "Here's your costume design." I said, "Great, let's do this." And so, I brought into play my secret weapon, my brain. So I sound like Trump, but it's like, I'm a very stable genius. What can I say? So, no, but I'll tell you what. He
does say so himself.
But I know what I want.
Right. Well, and by the way,
this is true.
That's the best thing in the world. He knows exactly what he wants, almost to a fault, but not quite.
Yeah. Like most of the time, I know what I want, and I know how to get it.
Right.
The rest of the time, I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it. And then that's your job to help me get there. And then only rarely do I not know what I want, but I know the decision tree to figure out how to get to what I want. So it's like I'm just a very organized thinker, and there tend not to be a lot of wasted side avenues or searching around or looking for things. So when I was with the production design, I was like, I need this for this reason and this for this reason. And they're like, oh, I mean, I've had this experience with, I'll tooting my own horn with self-promotion anyway. So like I've had this experience where I sit down to work with somebody, whether it was on a record album or with an editor. And then like in 20 minutes, they go, "Oh, you know what you want."
Yeah.
And then after they say that, they're like, "Oh," it's like, okay, great. Because before that, it's like, well, who is this nut or what is like, does he really mean that? And then once they know you know what you want, it's like, oh, okay, now we're going someplace.
Well, that's what made it was much easier for me to edit because you knew what you wanted. I figure, you get all this footage and you're going to play with it. You're going to dig into it and try a bunch of things. You didn't want to do that. You knew what you wanted. You knew exactly which takes you wanted. So it made my job easier. I started out trying to come up with something, but he knew what he wanted. So once we started working together, it was very easy to edit the film. It was hard.
I mean, it was work, but it's always the point is that it's productive work and it's not unproductive work because and then so you asked like what it was like. It was absolutely terrifying because, I'm sitting in this chair and we tried a very high risk, high reward way of casting.
Right. Oh yeah. That's really interesting. Talk about, so you had a great casting director. Talk about how you came up with your actors. Cause for you imagination connoisseurs out there, Lukas did get a voice. There's a voice in the movie. Talk about your casting.
All right. Well, first of all, I've worked with Christine before and now we got to be careful because she's a producer. Right. And we often say she's the casting director because she comes from casting and she's
transitioned to being a producer now.
Yes. So, but I want to be clear that, it's like, you got to be careful. You can't give somebody the impression she's casting girl. It's just like, which is not what we're doing, but people tend to fall into these modes. And so she's a partner, but she comes from casting and she and I have a really, a good way of knowing. She knows what I mean, and so she's very good at saying, "How about this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
I mean, I call her my professional wife because when we've worked together on a lot of things, femme fatales happened, but we've worked on a lot of things that didn't come together. But we've been through the crucible together, and I love her to death. And I would bring her onto any project as a producer. But one of the things that she brings is the ability to get us to agents and things because she's casting.
Right. So she knows the whole game of how you get talent. So there's sort of two ways to do this kind of thing. And one is like, you can just try and get people for free or friends and do a lot of auditions. And I've done that before and a long time ago. And it has certain upsides, which is if you get somebody who's just so happy to be in a movie, you can rehearse with them and, they can really, they'll be there for you. And if you make an offer to an actor, you might not be cast until the last second, which is we weren't. Right. We had Jessica Bohr come off the set from Shameless the night before, and so we had actors come into it totally cold because we just went and bought them.
Right.
And they were great, so we got people who I thought were right for the part, but there was definitely like a sort of a shaking out for the first couple hours because I never directed. They never worked with each other. They never worked with me. We never worked with this. You're trying.
And how many days did you shoot the short?
2 over a weekend. Yeah, so you get rentals for the price of one day. But
so you shot over one weekend, and then you had an additional day of photography on location.
Yeah,
in the mountains,
some dream flashback type things with 2 other actors. And so the casting was Christine saying, "How about Tom Madden?" And I was like, looked at his reel, like, yeah, that's my guy, because casting, you just don't mess with casting.
No,
it's chemistry, and it's just so, you cast them correctly, and the second the audience sees them, they know the backstory, and then you can underdirect them a little bit, and you get what you want. I wasn't really able to underdirect them because there was so much stuff, and for me, it was like, so I'm the writer, director, and I'm paying for it. The fans are paying for it. I had to put money in myself too. So it's like, I'm on the hook. And I was sitting in that chair like, oh, whoa, is this going to be another lucky bastard? And in that I lose all my money? I was like, no. So I was like, okay, let's fix this, because it was hard. And, but the DP was so good and the production design was so good that I didn't have to worry. We had made our shot list, and I knew he knew what to get with the camera. And then, so he basically was like, I'd say, Dan, what do you want to do next? And he'd say this, the over the shoulder. I was great. And then like at the end, I'd say, I want one more angle, and we do that. But like he was driving the photography. Probably more, he really carried me because I never directed.
Right.
Because so I put 100% of my energy into performance. And I was talking with these guys, with Tom and with Jess, and we were really trying to build a relationship, and just every scene trying to figure out, what's the meaning of every line, and how do we get the body language? How do you give them stuff that's playable? How do you build a relationship so that when they're in conflict, it's not just stupid movie stuff,
sure,
but it's like a marriage that's on the on the rocks. And I think we did it, and they did a great job.
One of the things that was interesting about this is that there was a lot of special effects in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of special effects. And what was interesting is this space fighter bomber, unlike a lot of spaceships that you've seen, has no windows in it. It's more like a tank. And they fly the ship by holographic imagery. So these holograms are a big part of how you tell the story.
Yeah.
Now, you'd never worked with special effects before, and you were able to employ Tobias Richter, who I'd worked with on Axonar. Yeah. So Tobias Richter worked with these effects, but you had to sort of visualize on the set how these special effects were going to work. How was that for you? Because
on the set, I don't remember a lot of. On the set, it was mostly about. Dan took care of. We had some interactive lighting. It wasn't a big deal on the set because they're so, they can animate anything, that.
But interactive lighting is a huge thing.
That's a huge thing.
Because when you have something that's illuminated and you don't shoot interactive light, it doesn't sell the illusion.
Well, we were on top. We had broken down the script, so we knew which shots had holograms, and then we knew which shot. We shot all these wild just angles of the holograms, so we had stuff to cut in.
Right.
I'll tell you about the shooting for me was like, the weirdest thing for me is that like I thought I was getting what I needed.
Sure.
But I was the only one. I mean, I had the script supervisor who was like, hey, this is pretty good. I was like, thanks. But everybody else, I'd be like, how do you think it's going? They're like, I don't know. Because they're like, it's in focus.
Right, yeah.
I got the sound,
Well, it really, isn't this interesting? One of the things that you know, when you talk to writers, especially feature writers, they'll tell you they don't believe in the auteur theory. I hear that a lot. Like, you know, nobody should take the film by credit. However, now that you've directed this movie, no one on the set, like you said, knows exactly how it's going to come together except you.
Well, this was a unique case because it was such a skeleton crew, and I had written it as well. They all knew. It's like you're the guest conductor of an orchestra, but you don't play an instrument.
Right.
So you sort of have this like sneaking suspicion that people are looking like, well, because one time I asked Dan, I said, can you, when she says that, can you zoom in on him? He goes, Lucas, we don't have a zoom lens. I thought, oh, well, never mind. Then we'll just, you know, sorry.
You can push in.
You push in. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, that's how dumb I was. So yeah, it's like you're the guest conductor, and sometimes, and you also know how it is where, you know, the AD's like, so you got it, right? We're moving on. It's like, no, I didn't get it. I want one more.
That would be the assistant director.
So it's like, well,
he's trying to make sure you make your day.
That's his job. So he's like, well, how many more do you need? I'm like, I don't know.
That's not what an AD wants to hear.
But it was true. He's like, do you think you're going to finish this before lunch? I was like, no. But I'll tell you what, they said, can you try to be done by 6:30? Because we got to break. We got to be out of here at 8:30. We had to break down the set. I finished at 6:38, people.
Which is pretty good.
I didn't have to drop a single shot. I got everything.
So where can people see? First of all, the movie's done. We edited the film. I had a really fun time cutting it together. So the question we should have told them like an hour. No. It's fine because it's fine. We got more people watching now.
Oh,
72 people watching right now.
You usually have 150.
Yeah, but it's Saturday night on a holiday weekend.
Bad ratings, man.
So no, this will be here. So you can see the trailer for SKYFIGHTER.
Give me $5 and you can watch the movie. Because okay. All right. So here's this.
Here you go.
All right. I'll give you the honest truth is that I would love to show everybody the movie, but I can't because if I put it online publicly, I can't get it into film festivals because they won't take it. And I need it in film festivals for my precious career. So I have to hold it back, but I'm so living hand to mouth that I thought I owe people from the first Indiegogo a Blu-ray that I can't even afford to make. So I figured let me do a second Blu-ray and see if I can raise a little bit more money. And so
I want a Blu-ray.
We'll make a Blu-ray.
I want a Blu-ray.
This will be a feature. I just don't know when. So if you go to the Indiegogo link, if you want to give me $5,
I did put
then
the
I'll send you the link. Yeah.
In the description of this chat, I did put the Indiegogo link on, and you can see the trailer.
You see the trailer. Look, I know this is like mildly irritating.
Well, no, but I thought, look, I wanted to talk to you because a lot of people ask me about independent filmmaking. How do you get into it? What do you do? And you're a self-made indie filmmaker, and you're at the beginning of your career. You've produced a movie. You've directed this short. You're now trying to. It came out great. Unlike some people, you crowdfunded the short and got it made in short order. Kind of like the way when we made the Prelude to Axanar trailer, we crowdfunded it, and 3.5 months later, we premiered it at the San Diego Comic-Con. You did the same thing.
This bedtime story.
Well, no, you crowdfunded the movie. You shot it in August.
We did.
And then the visual effects took longer than we thought. We finished it and mixed it. It was done in March.
Yes. It's done. It's done.
It's done. It's a finished piece of work, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you. My highest priority now is to get the feature made, and I've got these production company that is going to start the process of trying to go and get an actor who's bankable to say I want to do that. And
I think what's really interesting about this is that, you know, for all of you, people are always asking me about independent filmmaking. To me, this is the perfect way to get a movie made in this day and age. You've written a great script, and it is a great script. Then you have to come up. People always want to see something. Well, we need to mitigate our risk. What can we do to mitigate the risk? Well, Lucas is an untried director, so we went out and made a 15-minute short that has lots of coverage. It's got special effects. It's got action. It's got great character drama. It's got heart. It
does, actually.
And it's really well directed. And this is not just me saying it because I edited the film.
My wife said so, and I believe her.
But it's a great pice of work, and I'm very proud.
I'm really looking forward to people getting a chance to see it.
Yeah, and I look, I want to work on the feature film. I won't lie to you, but this is what we're doing. So in addition to talking on the internet between producing and editing Tango Shalom. I've been working on SKYFIGHTER and doing all these other things. You've got to get out there and show people your work. So I figured it's your story is interesting, and I'm going to have more people come on my chats.
Do they have questions?
If you guys have any questions, I was going to throw that out. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I don't.
I want to look up my nose.
Do you want? No, I don't know.
How is Altered Carbon? Oh, you mean Canadian Blade Runner?
No, if you guys have any questions about this. Oh, how long is the film?
15 minutes.
It's 15 minutes. That's good. Good.
Should we go back? Should we scroll it up to the top?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody's been. I haven't seen. Yeah, mostly people have been just chatting. I haven't seen any.
Oh, they're not even listening.
They're listening. So if you guys have any questions, fire in any questions about making.
Yeah, they haven't seen it, so I don't blame them. Do you want to just talk geek stuff? I'll answer anything. I've got all these opinions, and they're so interesting.
Canadian Blader. Oh, Jim Boyer says, "Oh, I showed Jim Boyers this movie."
Oh, thank you,
Lucas. I want to say I really enjoyed the film. Loved Eric Palladino. He's my moderator.
Oh, Eric. Thank you, Jim. And Eric is he's terrific. I really enjoyed meeting and working with him.
Yeah, and by the way, Jim is an ex-cop. He's Officer Jim Boyers.
Okay.
And he's a very smart man.
I'm white. I don't have to worry about the cops. Dude, it's true. My nephews are mixed race, and it's a problem.
Hey, wait, the real Super Geeks is here. Rob Lucas. Hey, it's Sean O'Halloran. Great show. Looking forward to the film.
Oh, thank you.
What film or book does your short take inspiration from, if any?
Well, I've had it compared to Memento, Galactica, Blade Runner, and there was one or two others, and they were all hits. So I said, sounds good to me.
I have to say that the feature, obviously the proof of concept short is just a short, but the feature script is much more even developed, and it's quite good. Trinidad, the Island Man, says the trailer looked great. I'm really looking forward to watching it. Well, thank you, Trinidad. I appreciate that. He's a longtime viewer here and part of the Robservations Imagination connoisseur community, the Post-Geek Singularity. Have you guys ever seen Star Crash? Says Alan Young.
I did, actually.
With a score by John Barry. I talk about Star Crash all the time. I love it.
Dude, okay. You'll appreciate this. So what's my 7-year-old, 8-year-old, my introduction to heterosexuality? Catherine Bach, Caroline Monroe. I mean, seriously.
Caroline Monroe. I have an action figure. I
was 7. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's something I don't know yet.
She was Naomi in Spy Love Me. I'm a huge Star Crash fan. I have the Blu-ray. I love Star Crash. I have great big love for Star Crash. So Alan, thanks for that. I have. Sounds great. Let's see. Oh, Dieter Bastian from Germany is here. Which festivals have you submitted SKYFIGHTER to?
I've submitted it to like Fantastic Fest in Toronto, and something called the LA Shorts Festival and Holly Shorts, and one other. I don't remember. I had such a bad experience with I've sent like 20 film festivals refused to take Lucky Bastard because they're freaked out by it. So I'm bitter. I am, actually, because it was really cool, and they were just. Are you trying to get China investors?
Yeah, Doc Civil wants to know, are we trying to get China investors?
I would take money from any place, but I'm not trying to because there's so many weird hoops with the Chinese government. I don't, I'm not thinking about that. It's a low budget movie enough that we just need any money. We don't need like 60 million from China.
Dale M says, want to say thanks to Lucas for doing this. We appreciate it. AJ Lancaster says, you have advice for low cost tech for developing a short.
Tech, as in, I don't know what that means by tech. I mean, the low cost, how to develop a short is basically, it's not even a short story. It's just imagine that you're blowing up a balloon and it pops and it's over. That's a short. And it's all about the writing. You have to construct something that's what you don't want to do is start the short with a card, garage productions for 30 seconds and then have this opening shot for 40 seconds and then have still this guy sad. You just hit the ground running, so it's interesting.
The credits for this movie don't come until the end.
Yeah,
we talked about the fact that people put these long credits at the beginning.
People will turn anything off instantly and they're watching on their phones. So
Right.
it has to be instantly grabbing, and it just has to be constructed. So about tech, I mean, I don't know about, I'm sure I'm not the person to ask about cameras and stuff like that, but just make it a piece of drama and make, you start Twilight Zones, the original Rod Serling ones. It's the third act of a story. You just start with the third act.
Yeah.
And it's a real time. I don't know. Mine's sort of like a real time climax.
Ben Bamboo says, I'm donating to this. I love supporting independent art projects. You can go to the Indiegogo
brother.
link. If you want to get a Blu-ray and you want to donate to the project, there's an Indiegogo link up now. And what you said, for $5, you get a digital download.
Yeah. As soon as I'm home, I will send you the Vimeo link.
Yeah. If you
wait, somebody compared my movie to Enemy Mine, which was not a hit, although I do like that movie.
Right.
I like at the end when they all gargle the Maurice Jarre music.
Right. I have that on Blu-ray. I have the Enemy Mine Blu-ray.
Yeah, I love that score, actually.
Trinidad the Island Man says, okay, Lucas, you seem really cool and what I think James Gunn might be like. Who would you compare yourself to as a writer, director-wise? One
time I told my manager, tell people I'm like Ryan Johnson because he makes a lot of money. And he goes, that's a good comp. So I said, all right. So, I don't know, man.
Would you say that now?
What?
Ryan Johnson?
What?
He's a little controversial.
I would.
Although I can't wait to see his new movie, Knives Out.
He's a great director. There were things about Last Jedi that were annoying, but I don't know. I'm definitely I think I'm a writer director.
You are a writer director.
I like to do upscale genre.
Jim Boyers also says, thanks for doing this.
You're very welcome. What are you talking about? Gore Vidal said, never turn down an opportunity to be on television or have sex or be on television. And at Rob's house, could be both.
Not with me, though.
No.
Although, we're open here. Like I always say, we're part of the Post-Geek Singularity.
Omnivorous.
And,
sexually omnivorous.
you never know. That's
Alan Young. It will be on YouTube eventually. Starfighter. SKYFIGHTER. I couldn't call it Starfighter because that's the last Starfighter, and I don't like that movie.
Alan Young says, would you like to tackle a superhero movie of some kind?
Bro, I'll do anything.
Doc Civil said, I've heard the ideal length for a short for festivals is 5 minutes.
I've actually been told you're better off doing under 5, not 15. You're supposed to do under 10 because that way they can put it before a feature and they don't have to put it in a shorts program. And I just I wrote too much.
But that's true. Let's see. Really appreciate it. Took it to heart. Thanks, Lucas. Blake St. Clair says, do you think it's easier making a proof of concept scene from a feature and marketing as a short to grow awareness and funding for the feature project? Is this the general idea of SKYFIGHTER?
It is the idea. And I should say that I didn't necessarily, and in the end, just take a scene and shoot it. I took the same idea and wrote a new story from the premise that was conformed to a short story. But look, here's the deal. It's a competitive environment. I mean, it used to be 20 years ago, you could write a script and sell it.
Right.
Now you can't, all they want to make are branded, they want branded properties. You can't just sell a script that people won't even read a script. So it becomes more and more competitive to the point where I made a spec movie. That's what it is. And it's funny. My business partners say, don't call it a short film, call it a proof of concept.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
It's a proof of concept.
Yeah. So, I mean, same thing, but so you're just, what you're doing, but it's all good because if it's good, I mean, if it's bad, you lost all your money, but if it's good, then they go, oh, okay, he can do it. And it's a show of confidence,
right?
It's a press release. It's you're saying I can do this because I will put my own money to prove it. And then they're like, okay, well, we can trust this guy with money too. I mean, he's a responsible person, which I am.
Well, I have a question for you. Did the short turn out the way you envisioned it would turn out when you started it?
Yes. Better. It came out better.
It came out better.
Yeah.
It
was scary being on set because I was talking too much to the actors. And I probably was overloading them and they were great, but I was trying to, I'd never done this before. So I never figured out exactly what's the right direction because you don't want to you don't want to say the wrong thing and lose them. You don't want
Right.
to, you don't want to like, you don't want to say don't do that but you just sort of have to figure out the way, the respectful, the good way, the proper way to handle artists.
Right.
But we got on the same page, and by the end I was, there was a moment I was like, I took the headphones off after a take. I was like, ooh, I'm a director now.
I have to say, from the time we started to the time we finished, I was very impressed with how it came out. I thought it came out great. It was fun watching Tobias. Tobias had a really difficult job effects-wise because there was only one shot in space, but there was rotoscoping involved, and he had to incorporate visual effects into the live action footage. So that was very difficult to do. By the way, I just want to answer this question. Doc Civil has nothing to do with SKYFIGHTER. He's asking someone else. Would you want to license the rights to
I'll
a UFO
be back
movie?
in a half hour.
No, I just want to say that Bill Hunt and I came up with a great pitch and wrote a great pitch document for a new UFO television series that takes place in the near future, but the original UFO series is in continuity. So the same way that Game of Thrones was informed by the past continuity of Westeros, our new UFO pitch would have been informed by the TV series, and it was in the same continuity.
Dude, I like the theme. I don't get that show.
Oh, I love the show.
All
love it. Let's see. Are SKYFIGHTERs those toys you pull a string and they fly up? Not exactly. Hey, Lucas, the visual effects of SKYFIGHTER comes from a German effects house. How did that work, and how did you choose it?
I chose it because Rob had a relationship with him, and he does great work, and he's it's affordable for fan films and for independent productions like this. And then how did we work? We just I wrote a lot.
You were specific with him.
I wrote a lot of memos, and I drew a lot of pictures, and then like I would print out a screen cap, or I print out a still of the effect of the draft he had sent over, and I would mark it up with a marker and take a picture and send it back.
What was interesting about the film, there's about 100 effect shots, a little less, but we actually cut the movie before we had the effect shots because we had to figure out how would these holographic shots work. So we had a lot of empty plates trying to guess.
That's man's work.
Yeah, it was.
You've done a man's job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Gaff would have liked the work I did, but it was for me. I'd never done that before, and it was really interesting.
And Rob, we were worried. Oh man, the timing's going to be off. I think we had like 100 shots. We had to change the timing on like maybe 3 of them. Yeah,
it really. I mean, we were really able to. It was really interesting. I learned a lot working on the SKYFIGHTER short.
The problem with that is that the rough cut was incomprehensible.
Right.
I sent it to my partners, and they're like, yeah. Like, well, it looks okay. Yeah, I guess keep going. And they're like, I think it's good.
Nobody, it doesn't matter how experienced you are.
You can't
for you
watch
filmmakers.
Yeah, do not show unfinished work to anybody.
No, everybody thinks even the most experienced film professionals will say, oh, I understand watching a rough cut.
Oh yeah, it's not done. Don't worry. If that sounds bad, don't worry.
Never show try and get something as finished as possible before you show it, because people will come back and it'll be very disheartening. It'll be very disheartening. Let's see. Do you work through a literary agent, or is your proof of concept your sole output in film?
Don't quite understand. I have a manager in a business, not a business manager, a general film media manager, and I have this is my sole directorial output, but I did write Lucky Bastard, co-write Lucky Bastard.
Dale M wants to know, what is rotoscoping? I've heard the term, but I don't know what it is.
It's named after Phil Roto, who founded the process. No, it's very simple. Let's imagine you're putting like a background, a special effect thing. It just means you're like you're doing a cutout of us in front.
Well, we'll say behind us here, there's a holographic screen that's projecting images. Since we're moving around, you every time we move, you have to add frames, or you have to rotoscope around our heads. Because that's a good question, and I used to know the answer to it. But it's an animation process, really. But what's really hard is if you don't allow for it when you first shoot your live action, it becomes much more difficult for the special effects animators at the end, because we had everybody's moving, the camera's floating around.
It's
so
very meticulous. It's frame by frame animation.
Frame by frame animation. And when you're dealing in live action where things are moving and they're not locked off, and the entire film, aside from our plates, are handheld, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole film is handheld, which gives it a more immediate look. It's not shaky cam.
He's a phenomenal operator.
The movie's beautifully shot, but the camera, it's always floating a little bit, moving around. Nothing is locked off. So when you see these holograms, since the camera's moving and the two characters are moving, you can't just have people standing still. So the animation has to take into consideration both the movement of the camera and the movement of the people. So each frame is different animation, and it's a pain in the ass.
Would I ever do a TV pilot? Yes. I'd do anything, dude. I need money. I'm trying to raise $5 on the internet. What is this?
Have you ever dabbled in animation?
I have not. I was like a kid artist. I used to draw a lot as a kid, and I haven't really done it for the last like 30 years, but I can still sketch stuff and I can communicate enough through sketches that I think Tobias, I mean, I loved working with him, and he was very complimentary about the project. Well, okay, Bill Barkley, this is. I'd love to answer your question. This is the director's cut.
Right.
I'm the director. This is the only cut.
Right. There's no
outtakes. There's no
outtakes.
It is the script, basically.
Yeah. You ever do a TV pilot? What's the next project you're working on? He's actually written a number of.
I've written
a few good scripts that I really like.
I write. I have more you should read. I would do anything that makes money, and what we're trying to do is make the feature film of SKYFIGHTER.
AJ Lancaster says, my first movie date was a screening of Lady in the Water. My theater had an unfinished cut with none of the CGI work and the boom mic in each shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was they like the Yoda in the background. Hey, Lucas, how much Hot Toys did your editor charge you for working on SKYFIGHTER?
What does that mean?
That's a hot toy.
Oh,
that's what I like in these cases here.
He's a prince. He did it for a song. He really worked on this thing for 4 or 5 months, and it's like the publicist for a token amount of money. And Rob has got a good heart.
Yeah, I do.
He's got a good heart.
Hey, we got a super chat. How's it going, guys? What do you look for with actors? That's a good question. Well,
you look for who's right for the part. And
how can you tell?
You can tell because people's physicality communicates the character. And it's a little bit unfair because it's like, if this guy's got a broken nose, it's like, it doesn't mean he's a good actor or a bad actor, but everybody's physical, everybody has a story. And it's so funny. Like, I remember my friend was telling me a story third hand about how they cast John Hamm in Mad Men, where he cast him because he didn't have much of a career, but he'd been around. And there was something about him where he was this handsome man in the gray flannel suit, but there was something about him that was wounded.
Oh, okay.
And it turned out that the actor in real life had been adopted the way the character had.
Right.
I mean, there's just these qualities that actors have. And I think it's really why I feel for them and how hard their profession is, because they're getting work based on the kind of just the random luck of who is right or wrong for any given part. And then on top of that, when you're dealing with leads, you're dealing with who's bankable. I mean, the hardest thing in the universe to find is a leading man. It just is. Right.
Oh, well, look, Jim Boyers just said that Jessica Bohr was perfect for her role. Tell the audience how Jessica Bohr came to be a part of it. Jessica Bohr is the female. Gabor is the female lead.
She's great. She was because I was trying to get somebody from a TV show who was sort of interested, who told us no on Thursday. We were shooting Saturday, and then I'll just tell the story because I've told Jess the story. There was someone, so Christine comes back with 2 choices from an agent who was going to help us out. And one of them, they were both really good. And she said, here's the one who's like, hotter just because she was on a hotter TV show. And the backup was Jessica Bohr. And I said, exact quote, I said, Christine, I actually like the backup better for this, I'm not saying she's a better person, but just as casting.
Right.
And what happened was, so we asked the actress who was hotter in terms of being on a hotter TV show, was literally getting a tonsillectomy and wanted to do it, but couldn't. And we were already building the set and we couldn't move it. So then Thursday night, we like, please do this Jessica Bourne. And she said, yeah, that looks cool. So I was like, oh my God, that's what's, I mean, okay. So it's like
hotter than Shameless. It was the actress on a hotter show than Shameless.
I believe so, but I'm not going to say what it was.
Right.
But I actually would work with that other actress on something else because she just has a different quality. There's something, it's like, I didn't want that problem that, like, I remember I was over at a friend's house and they were watching this random movie with, what's the model's name from Species? Natasha Henstridge?
Yeah, Natasha Henstridge.
So like the characters in the movie are going, hey, what are you doing here? My friend behind me goes, modeling. It's like, you don't want, oh, what do you do in the spaceship? Oh, I'm an actress. It's like, you want someone who, and if they're too beautiful, it doesn't seem real. But on the other hand, I had to explain to some of my partners on this who were like, I had a comment, someone said, there's going to be a lot of pretty people in that spaceship. I was like, bro, we've got holograms, spaceships, aliens, memory implants. It's like, this is not reality. This is hyper reality. I need people who are larger than life, more attractive than life, because if they don't, they're going to get swallowed by the hardware.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay.
By the way, I want to answer this one. Doc Civil says, if you don't write a script in the right format, do the script readers dismiss it out of hand?
Yes. Next question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I read screenplays professionally for a living for years. And yes, if you haven't written a script in the proper format, nobody wants to read it, because that's the first visual cue that your script isn't worth reading. I'm sorry to say
but
that.
I got to finish about Jessica Bourne.
Oh, sorry.
Because she walks in Saturday morning. She goes, hey, thanks for having me. I'm Jess. I'm like, thank you. Thank God for, thank you. Because I was so terrifying. We're 36 hours. I'm paying for this thing. We don't have an actress. My partners are upset. They're like, this is really irresponsible of you to not have a backup. I was like, I'm sorry, but I mean, don't worry. Christine will deliver. And I was sick. I've got a fever like once every 5 years, and I have a fever, and I have like, my kids are sick. And so my kids are home from school. It was just so deeply unpleasant. But then we cast. She shows up in the morning, and you want me in wardrobe? Yeah. And then like, okay, what are we doing? And then she's just a phenomenal actress.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Look,
she's so good.
Here's the thing: you got to plan if you're going to make a movie. You got to plan, and you have to be prepared. But like I've always said, as they say in military terms, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. So sometimes you just got to fly by the seat of your pants and push through it, and that's what Lucas did as far as casting.
Well, yeah, yeah.
But you also have to rely on other people. So Sylvan89 sends in, how does one go into getting an acting career?
Bro, you're gonna have to spend more than $1.99 for that. Dude, that is like, there are seminars upon seminars.
Yeah.
It's just brutal.
It is brutal.
Look, here's the thing. I'd say be a writer. Here's why. If I write something and give it to someone, he goes, that sucks. You go, I'll write something else. When you're an actor and they say, we don't want you, you suck. That's you. You can't get a different, you could get a different face a little bit, but you were locked in to your height, your skin color, your race, your age. You're really at the mercy.
Actually, AJ Lancaster says, Sylvan89, I'm an award-winning theater actor, poet, and comedian. On my local level, it's about exposure and luck.
It is, yeah.
Couldn't have said it better than that. That's exactly right. You got to get out there and do the work. Acting, it's, what's great? If you want to watch a very entertaining movie about the actor's life, watch Tootsie from 1982.
Yeah, that's a great
It's one of my favorite comedies ever.
I put out the CD.
I have that CD.
Dave Grusin score.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, it's great.
I love that.
You know who asked me to do that? Seth MacFarlane.
Oh, really?
He goes, hey, could you put out a CD of Tootsie?
Oh, that CD is
Seth,
great.
I can. He also asked me for Little House on the Prairie, and I said, dude, I can't help you.
Let's see.
Has Natasha Henstridge been on Agents? I don't know. I don't watch that.
I don't know. Would you ever do a vampire movie? Those are fun.
they feel kind of played out. I watched True Blood until there were like smoke monsters and Navajos and werewolves, and I was like, what the hell?
This is a great one. General Melchett says, Lucas, how are you approaching sound design? You had this movie has a lot of very cool sound design in it. And talk about the sound design and how the score worked with your sound design.
Well, yeah, I wanted to do like a retro synth score because I just love that.
Well, when you say retro synth score, give us examples. What is a retro synth score?
You know, Runaway and Tangerine Dream in 2010 and early 8 Blue Thunder. So, and look, the set was kind of retro, and I thought let's do sort of like a kind of retro synth score, which not everybody liked because it's a little bit of an acquired taste, I suppose. But for sound design, because I'm a music guy, and I worked very closely with the composer, I was able to say, leave room there for the engines. Don't make it too busy. I just be up high and be low and up high, and the sound effects is going to just obliterate it. And he's like, okay. So we planned for it. So we did something that's very active that would be punchy. When we go outside the ship, we didn't do any sound, which there's dubious about, but it does work.
Yeah, there's a 40-second long special effects shot that's silent. It's an exterior space shot that's completely silent, and that was interesting.
Wait, I can be shorter. I saw Shatner's shoes from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Not kidding. Lifts. He's not 5'10". He's 5'8".
How many times do you rewrite a script until you know it's ready?
You always.
That's Kino Karete says that.
I hate rewriting, but what happens is that you just are. Oh, it's like what was that famous conductor who? Someone said, "Yeah, but you conducted that last year," and he goes, "Yes, but last year I was a fool." You always feel like you're getting better and better. So you pull up a script you wrote a year ago, and you're like, oh, what was I thinking? You learn your craft and you get better and better. So you're always rewriting. And then you're really rewriting on the stage because you realize there's certain things you write to be read. So that people go, yeah, I want to make this. And then once you get there, you go, okay, that's not really, I need another line here, or I can cut this here, or I need just a look there. That's what I love being the director, because I can say, when you're asking this question, you already know the answer. That's why you're asking it in such an open-ended way. You want to see if he knows. And then she's like, oh, okay. It's how to be a good director in one word: playable. Right. Give playable direction. Don't say you're sad here. Be more sad. You say you're afraid he's going to say something that's going to make you realize your friend's dead, and you're afraid he's about that's going to. That makes them sad. You tell them things to externalize, to do, that will lead to the emotion.
Alan Young says, "Did you have any Foley on your short?"
You always have Foley. Yeah, we have a terrific post house, Private Island Audio, and they had some Foley guys. Everybody has Foley.
Did you rewrite in the edit these days, says Blake Sinclair?
Well, they say you write it once when the script, you write it again when you're shooting it, and you write it again in the editing room.
We didn't really rewrite it.
We didn't really have to. It was playing pretty well. What we really had to do is just bring out. I think we found that it was longer than the script because there were these moments that the actors did that I asked them to do, and some they did on their own, that would just put more depth and dimension into the characterization. So it actually became longer than the script.
There isn't. Everyone's talking. There's no.
Bro, why am I here? Why am I here? I've turned in one of these people that says, "Bro." Is Alan Young? Is that an actor in the Time Machine? Who am I thinking of?
That's Rod Taylor.
No, not Rod Taylor. The other guy, Alan something, plays his friend. I
don't know. They're talking werewolf movies. Although General Melchett, thanks for.
I will answer every question. Yeah.
There's no more questions coming in about the movie. Well, I'll ask you another question.
Okay.
So, after you've gone through this process and you've finished this short, how are you now going to get it made into a feature? You've got the proof of concept. Now what?
Because fortunately, I have producing partners who are already making movies, who are going to evaluate different actors and what they're worth on the market, and we're going to make offers to talent, and provided there's the right talent, they have investors who will finance the movie.
Now, if you Would you use the same actors from the short? Do you want to find more? Obviously,
I would.
Well, tell them. Talk about what the difference. Why in a low budget movie is it important to have actors that have some kind of name recognition or recognizable value?
I will. This is not a happy topic for me because I always feel connected and loyal to the people. Second, in Hollywood, second someone uses the word loyal, they're not. You're gonna get. But the actors, I would absolutely make the movie with our actors. Now, the characterizations in the feature are a little different, so I'd really have to think long and hard about are the same people right for the part. But just as a matter of loyalty, I would absolutely do it. But the problem is that I couldn't raise enough money off of their names alone,
right?
To pay for all the special effects that the feature require. And they probably knew that going in. I mean, there was never any sort of. I paid them. I paid them a decent, not a ton of money, but I paid them a fair amount of money for a weekend's work.
Sylvan89 says, "How big will your cast be?"
That's interesting. That's funny because we actually had that conversation with my partners on Friday, saying, hey bro, let's get Chris Evans. And then, whoa, yeah, that's awesome. But then you realize that everybody's trying to get Chris Evans.
Right.
And his agents are going to be like, well, sure, you're offering X number of million. He gets that offered 3 times a day. And it's really about, they're protecting the brand and what project fits his brand and what project he's waiting for Scorsese to call. So it's always, you're always kind of, trying to marry up, but you have to be realistic.
Doc still has 2 questions. He says, do you have any contacts with Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu? And would you do nudity?
Would I do nudity personally?
I don't think it's you personally, but would you do nudity?
Well, we did Unlucky Bastard, and it was very uncomfortable, and not. I was not in any of the. It was a closed set, and I was not on it because I was not an assistant.
When I was directing Femme Fatales, I had to direct sex scenes, and I had no idea how uncomfortable it was. It was.
It's not fun. It's really.
Let's see. Kino Carete says, Lucas, do you let some of your coworkers do what they have to do, or do you have to be there in all corners 100% of the time?
Huh?
He wants to know, as a director, do you have to do you let people do what they do, or do you manage them to 100% of the time?
It's always a judgment call based on everybody's different. Some people like a lot of input, some people don't. Some people need input, some people don't. I mean, the problem is when some people need input and think they don't need it, and then you have to sort of, say this, I'm not getting what I want, and sometimes you have to let people go, which actually happened to me, and I don't want to talk about it, but
Sunil asks, how long will your feature take to film and then in post-production?
Shooting's only 2 or 3 weeks. Post-production, I don't know. I just don't know. It depends on how many effects and how much what the budget is. I wish I knew the answer. Who's Dashi?
Oh, longtime viewer here. He's Alan Young says, do you like the science fiction genre?
Seriously?
Well, I mean, people don't know. I know you do, but he doesn't know you do.
I really do. And I have the wedgies from high school and elementary school to prove it, man. Blake
St. Clair says, do you follow the rule of firing someone on the first day of the shoot?
I would if I had to. I didn't. I had to. It's not. Look, I don't want to talk about it. There were some people in post that I intended to use and was not able to use, and it was sort of mutual that I would not use.
I would like to speak to that a little bit. Hopefully, by the time you get to the first day of shooting, you've done enough pre-production. You already know your crew. You already know what they're capable of. That there's no need to fire somebody on the first day.
You've really failed at that point.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that adage has been perpetuated. I think that especially at the low budget level, you don't want to start your production by firing somebody on the first day. Ruling through fear on a film set, no, I don't believe in.
I believe in ruling by love.
Yes, I absolutely.
What Danny couldn't do, man. Look, poor Daenerys. She wanted to. Spoilers?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Doshi says, my shirt scared. This is Alex DeLarge. It's a frame grab from A Clockwork Orange. Oh. It's a Mondo t-shirt. People are just talking. That would be bad to fire someone on the first day.
It happens.
I will say
It
I've seen it
happens.
happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. It's never a good thing. Yes. Bill Barkley wants to know if you have any pets.
I have two. I have identical twin daughters who will be 5 in July, and thank God they're still alive. So no pets, man.
This is interesting. Sylvan89 says, "How fit do you want your actors and actresses to be?"
That is an interesting question. It depends on the part, and I'm personally
Gilbert, please.
It's a sexist, horrible business, and it should be less so. And it's unfortunately a reality that sex sells and that pretty people sell. And it's like, I think Dick Wolf's daughter once said, "Dad, why are pretty people on television?" It's just pretty people are on television. It's just true. And but it depends on the part, you know.
Well, here's the thing: what I feel about actresses, especially if they're in an environment where they're supposed to be in the military, like in SKYFIGHTER, you're in a branch of the military of some kind. They should look like they're in the military.
Yeah.
And look, movies are all make believe anyway, so it's better to have people that look good on camera. And by the way, people who look good on camera don't necessarily mean they're the most beautiful people in the world. There's a lot of people that are really interesting presences on film. Like I don't think anyone would say John Lithgow is the most handsome man in the world, but he has a really interesting face. And if you go all the way back to the 70s and watch his work, especially like in World According to Garp when he plays a transsexual. I mean, he's an actor that commands the screen. Meryl Streep is a beautiful woman, but she's not like a traditional California beauty, but she has a timeless classical quality to her looks that jump off the screen, and they have for 45 years.
Yeah, there's something about film actors to be successful is that you have to be able to remember what they look like. And if I say, yeah, John Lithgow, or if we say, any
well, there's lots of people. I mean,
Tom, think of
Gene Hackman was not necessarily a traditionally handsome
guy. The 70s were sort of a golden period for basically character actors became the leading actors, and it was unique.
Anthony Gonzalez says, "How much time between when you first had the very first idea of SKYFIGHTER to the time you had the feature script and then film the short? How much time?"
Well, I wrote it in 2015. I wrote the feature, and we only then I wrote the short maybe 2 years ago and shot it last year. So it's been a long time.
Kino Coretti says, "Guys, I know that depending on the film, one might choose."
No, Paul Giamatti. Actually, who's what?
Oh,
yeah, I love Paul Giamatti. I would love to make a specific movie with him. I love him.
You've written a script that you want him to be in.
Can we have a 7-second delay? No, I'm joking. Yes, I do. I did write a part for it. Who knows if that would ever happen? But I mean, look, movie actors, little bodies, big heads, big eyes.
Right.
It's true.
Okay, now Kino Coretti says, "Guys, I know that depending on the film, one might choose one location or the other for shooting. The question is, who picks which is the best location, the director or the producers?"
It's always a negotiation. It is. And someone else asked, would I go overseas? Like, dude, I'm begging you for $5. Yes, I would go anywhere to make. I'd go to Antarctica to make this movie.
Does the stereotype of the temperamental director actually exist? Yes.
I'm not temperamental.
No, he's not.
I'm not. Yeah, it does. I'm sure it does. But they don't. Bad behavior is not a good thing. It really is not. I mean, people want to see that you're passionate, that you're intelligent, that you know what you're doing. They don't want raging lunatics. I think. Ask Josh Trank.
Let's see. There's not any. Everyone's talking.
You're just having a good time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be a celebrity, and you're just having a good time.
People are talking about Glenn Close. I've loved Glenn Close since The Big Chill, I think, and she was also in World According to Garp before The Big Chill. Let's see. I don't know if
I didn't buy Giamatti. I love him, but I didn't buy him as John Adams. I mean, was John Adams Italian? I don't understand.
I don't know.
But he is a fabulous actor. I love Billions. Much better show.
Anthony Gonzalez says, "Can you convince me that The Wrath of Khan is better than the motion picture?"
Yeah, I can actually.
He doesn't have to convince me.
No, I will.
The motion picture is my favorite Star Trek movie, but I think Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie.
All right, and I can tell you why. Because it's actually a movie. I mean, you don't have to know Star Trek. It could just be a movie about this guy who used to be a space captain, and now he's old and sad, and he's got a friend and then there's this crazy guy who comes out of nowhere. But the thing about Star Trek 2, and the reason it works, is because it actually does have like a development speak, an arc.
Right.
And everybody thinks it's about Spock. It's not. It's about Kirk. Because Spock accepts death, Kirk accepts life. And it's the same arc he has in the motion picture, but it's better. And he says as much. It's in the movie. It's in the dialogue. At the beginning of the movie, he says, "I feel old." At the end of the movie, he says, "I feel young." I mean, but Nick Meyer said that on the commentary track.
Right.
That is the only like real Star Trek movie that is like for grown-ups.
Doshi says 3 times bad theater experience. People keep using phones. Well, Doshi, tell him to shut up. It's not a question. She's just stating it. But thanks for that, Doshi. I appreciate that. Doshi's always a good supporter of the channel. Thank you. Bill Barkley says, "Have you watched the Picard series teaser?"
I did.
What'd you think?
I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't have an axe to grind about Star Trek.
I don't have an axe to grind about the Picard series yet.
Grinding about you do about these guys making Star Trek.
I do about the people making it. But I hope springs eternal.
See, we could do this as a,
sure.
We could do this your show because I have opinions about all these things.
Yeah.
And I could play off of you very well because I think.
Well, let me ask you this: Kino Coretti wants to know whether you'd film in digital or on normal old film.
We film digital. I have no interest in filming on film. I've always benefited from technological change. I did a magazine when desktop publishing happened. I did these CDs right when Pro Tools happened. I don't need to be dealing with, and you shot on film.
Yeah.
So it sucks.
Well, there's no reason to use film now. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the people like James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez and Steven Soderbergh and David Fincher, I mean, CBS is just asking for the Burnett army. By the way, people are always accusing me of like being angry with CBS. I love CBS. I worked for CBS for 3 years on the Star Trek: The Next Generation restoration. I did all the documentaries with Roger Lay. The Next Generation restoration is the single greatest television restoration project in the history of the medium. And I was proud to work on it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. So good on CBS. Doc Civil says, "Is it easier to sell a sci-fi show or a fantasy show? Game of Thrones versus Star Trek."
Okay, it's easier to be famous, and then you can sell the phone book. Yeah. No, I'm serious.
No, it's true.
It's true, and you never know. You never know. It's like everything. Fantasy's dead, and then Game of Thrones happens, and everyone wants fantasy, and then something else is dead, and it's like period is dead, and then Mad Men happens. It's like it's really
okay. Do you like? Bill Barkley asks, "Do you like Star Trek Discovery?"
I'm agnostic because it's not my Star Trek as a fan, and stylistically there are things that look, I watched it. There were aspects of it I looked forward to watching it.
Right. There
were aspects of it I found really not to my taste because I'm 44 years old and I'm not 12. And it's when I used to read X-Men comics. And everybody who's read comic books know you read them like 4 years and then the stories start to repeat and then you discover baseball or girls and use something else.
Or you keep reading them.
But my experience with X-Men comics is that at a certain point, the art changed and everything became like a splash page and everyone started getting drawn like a wrestler. And I was like, I don't want to read this. So there was some aspect to Discovery where they have cracking voice. They have altered the paradigm in order to tell stories because there's so many weird things about Star Trek because it was invented in 1964.
Right.
And so it's not a vision of the future. It's a vision of the future that happened 50 years in the past. And
so I've always said Star Trek is a period piece about a future, the Camelot Kennedy future of the 60s. It is about
a future that used to be understood and now we know is not going to happen. And they had to reinvent it for a younger audience. And so there are some aspects of the shooting style and of the performances that I honestly find annoying.
Right.
And there's aspects of the storytelling that are just so hyperactive that there's it's weird. It's like every character is like a 19-year-old college sophomore writing a paper. And this is a long.
No,
do we have plenty of time?
Yeah, we have plenty. Alan Young says Discovery has different creators now. That's all. See, I see it differently. I think the creators of Star Trek are trying to reinvent Star Trek. They're trying to change what Star Trek is to suit what they want it to be.
Here, I don't care about that.
I do.
They care. They're doing what is working for the business environment. JJ reinvented it for a younger audience. They're just continuing that because it's Alex Kurtzman and he's, you know, the new COO of McDonald's, basically. No, look, I mean, I told you I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say in a meeting with him. That's not easy what he's doing.
Right.
But me personally, I don't go, oh, I can't wait for the new episode of 5-0. Right. I mean, it's for morons. But I watched Chernobyl.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Watch it.
Chernobyl's unbelievable.
I wish they would blow up more nuclear reactors so they could make more.
Kino Coretti
more than 5
says,
episodes.
What's the aspect that you like the most about directing? How much are you involved in storyboards and costumes and the actors, what they wear, the position of the cameras and sound design? Basically, he wants to know everything there is to know about directing.
Yeah, I'm very involved in everything because the director is the creative director, and it just is the nature of, if it's not television where the writing producers are kind of hiring the director and there's a kind of chain of demand, that on a feature, the director is the creative force behind the picture. So I'm involved with all those things. You're hiring professionals who know how to do these things. So you don't have to, I mean, you're not being obnoxiously intrusive, but what the aspect that I like the most is that I get to make it the way I want and within reason.
Right.
I mean, I can't spend money. It doesn't exist, but I like it for many reasons. I like being at the you know, the guy in charge, because you get to, first of all, you get to set the tone. So do we have a problem? Okay, let's talk about the problem. We're not going to kick things or be, you know, stab people in the back or be two-faced creeps or something, you know. So you get to set the tone of, we're going to be problem solvers and we're going to keep our heads and we're going to treat people decently and we're going to treat people respectfully and we're not going to tolerate any lecherous baloney with our actresses, which is, I mean, if I was in charge of, who's that guy who harassed Elijah Dusko?
Harvey Weinstein?
No, Michael Weatherly.
Oh yeah, Michael Weatherly.
I would have fired. I mean, I would. No, look, it's like you can't. On Lucky Bastard, where we had actresses doing nude scenes, you know, I was the one who said anybody who doesn't need to be out, and that includes me.
Well, when I was directing Femme Fatales, I mean, there was a lot of sex and disrobing involved. We had to do it. All the girls, up until one in particular at the end, were very happy about how they were treated. But the one thing you have to do, in my estimation, when you're directing, is you have to make sure that everybody on set feels good about being there, feels comfortable about working for you, and that you have to create an environment that both the cast and the crew feel safe at all times, all times, so they can work unfettered by the constraints of worrying about anything else.
I like it mostly because I get to make it the way I want, and because I have a vision. I write something, and I want to execute it the way I've written it because I know where the emotion is, I know what the point is, and I know how it's going to look, and so I can talk to everybody. And when things are not clear, I can say, no, we're going to do it this way because I want to get to that point.
Right. By the way, we should acknowledge Sean O'Halloran, the real super geeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for supporting the channel that way. That was great. And I'm glad you.
See, Marlon Brando, when he was making Superman, said, you know, like, you pay him a little, you pay him the $4 million, you get.
Here's a good question.
For $10, you get the whole.
Trinidad the Island Man says, Lucas, was there anything that the actors brought to the characters for your feature, the short or feature, that you didn't write on the page? Some backstory they made for themselves that added to the performance.
We didn't have time for any of that. They absolutely brought things to the characters into the feature. That's the process, and they were really, really good actors. But it was done so hastily that it wasn't like, you know, let's work out the biographies. I mean, sometimes they're saying like, wait, do I know this about this guy already? And I'd say, okay, wait, so you've probably, here's what probably happened the last 24 hours. And they go, oh, okay. And then, they come up with things that they need to get through it.
Right.
But it was so fast that to a certain extent, it just had to be mechanical. It's like, okay, here's the line, here's the emotion. Let's just get this take and let's keep going.
Doshi, we only saw you send in one super chat. I have a list here that it's only about your theater experience. Let's see. So that was a good question, Trinidad. Thanks.
Is the script your Bible on a movie? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Let's see. Do you plan
you cannot write it on the set. That's crazy.
Right.
If it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
RMB. Everyone says I missed a super chat. Did I miss a super chat? I keep looking. I don't see any.
Could the super chatter perhaps not give us more money, but rephrase it? Or
no, I haven't seen.
There's one that says message deleted. What's that?
There was a super chat that was deleted that I don't see.
We've been going at this for
almost 2 hours.
Time flies when you're on TV, man.
Let's see. Oh, what do you do if the actors don't do what you want? Says Nay.
You give them direction. You say, okay, and look, they're professionals. You say, all right, like I felt like I was getting like the teenage emotion, which would be more that you're upset at the circumstance, and the adult emotion is more that you already know this, and you're upset that he knows this too, and how could he do this to you? It's like,
right.
Oh, okay. So when you're not getting what you want, you give them, you talk it through, and then you start to, you have to know something about people, and you have to know something to work about people. You size people up, and you sort of get a sense of where this person's coming from and what their experience is and what their worldview is. And sort of you figure out how to communicate at a way that is the most useful for them.
Right. Here's a question. Sunil asks, is it easier to edit widescreen over full screen, RMB or Lucas? No, it's the same. Yeah. It really doesn't matter. I prefer the widescreen aspect ratio for film, just because, as John Carpenter once said, that's movies, man.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Magic K asks,
Snakes and Funerals, as Scorsese said.
Magic K says, your favorite comic artists or writers?
And for me?
For either one.
When I was reading comic books in the 80s, my favorite artists were John Romita Jr., Walt Simonson, who went to Amherst. I met him. Arthur Adams, John Byrne. It's all the Marvel 80s superstars.
Yeah, I mean,
Frank Miller.
I would say some of my favorite comic artists are like that, but I love Howard Chaykin. I love Bill Sienkiewicz. I love Dave Gibbons. But yeah,
Bill Sienkiewicz.
George Perez. But yeah, old school guys. Lucas, can you give us some more details on your feature, like what it's about?
Oh yeah, it's about me having a house. It's two people are inside a spaceship and they're fighting a space war, and they get attacked by the bad guys, and they're outnumbered and outgunned, and the bad guys are using the aliens are figuring out a way how to hack the pilots, because the pilots all have cybernetics. So it's got some Ghost in the Shell type stuff. And from there, these pilots have to figure out how to stay alive and save the universe, which they do.
And also,
they do one of the two. I can't not both.
We should say also that even though it's a two-person fighter bomber, it's not like a snub nose fighter like an X-wing or something. It's more like a B-25 Liberator from World War II.
Aaron Eckhart, I don't think he's a terrible actor. I loved him that first thing he did, that play adaptation. I can't remember what it's called.
Doshi says, my bro said you're wrong about Star Trek, a fake fan. I don't know what that means, Doshi, but I don't think I've got my bona fides.
I don't know.
Anthony Gonzalez asks, Lucas, have you been around the making of other independent films?
The one I made.
The one,
people really need to pay more attention when I speak. And joking. All right, I made an independent film, and learning from my friend, the director of that, and how he worked with actors.
Right.
Very educational.
Kino Corretti says, do you know how to work with the editing software and or the cameras? I think you do. The reason because I write this is basically because I have my own YouTube channel and I have to do it all myself. Yeah, having your own YouTube channel, this is a live chat, so it's just a live stream. But yeah, I've been a documentarian and a filmmaker for 30 years. So a lot of my DVD documentaries I've shot myself and edit them myself. And I just finished up editing a feature, and I edited Lucas's short.
Yeah, who is silly sometimes? Me or he? Basically,
where are you looking at?
Is it? No, I'm looking at the newest comments down there. Look,
Atoshi says he basically disagrees with everything you said about
that's fine. That's fine. The good thing for me about having been involved in fandom for 30 years is that I really don't have a personal investment in people's opinions. I want people to be happy. I want them to express their opinions. I want them to watch what they enjoy what they watch. And if we all had the same opinions, it'd be very boring. So
absolutely. Yeah. Nate wants to know what Yoda smoked back there. Original 51 says, "You demand, Rob." Alan Young says, "You're allowed to dislike Discovery."
But I don't even. I just found it.
Oh, there you go. Why can't I say Giordano? I can't pronounce his last name.
Giordano. Was he one of the DC guys?
Yeah. Tom Paul. These are all Klaus Janson. All great guys.
Yeah.
Man, I love the fact that you encourage other people's opinions. You guys rock. Well,
it's such a low bar. I mean, what kind of, I don't.
Well, look, here's the thing. As I've said on this channel, anybody who's watched me for any length of time knows that you members of the Post-Geek Singularity community are all welcome as long as you're respectful to share ideas. We're all here to share ideas.
I had my own business. I had a film music magazine, and I was operating my own retail store for a while.
Right.
So people call and say, "My jewel box broke," and blah, blah, blah. And you go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do?" Or if people have complaints, you go, "Wow, that's a really good thought. I wish I could help. And let me think about that." Then they're your friend. I mean, or you could be Alec Peters and fight with everybody under the sun, but it's counterproductive. I don't fight with people. I don't care to. It's I don't know. You kill them with kindness, and then they get really confused.
Lucas, do you agree with Kubrick that a film is made of 6 interconnected parts?
I guess I don't, because I don't even know what that theory is. Do you know what it is?
I don't know what it is.
Can you please put it in a comment? Because I'd like to.
Yeah, put it in the if you can find it.
Why am I ripping off Last Starfighter? I am. I'm not. But thank you.
Yeah, it's different.
One of my favorite films. It's the obvious. It's like Wild Bunch, Chinatown, The Empire Strikes Back, Alien, Star Trek 2. You know, the pantheon.
Starfighter's storyline sounds a bit like Enemy Mine. It's really not like Enemy Mine. Do you think it's like Enemy Mine?
No.
Yeah, I don't.
But I understand that we're just giving people bits and pieces.
Yeah, Sylvan89 says, Lucas, do you plan on keeping the main characters as a duo, or do you plan?
Oh no, it's a duo. It's a two-hander, as they call it. It's a twofer. And it's written, it's done. You know, did I wear those puffy director pants? No, but you know, the annoying thing that I learned when you're directing is that I wear glasses, and you also have to wear headphones. So you're constantly taking the headphones on and off over your glasses. And I don't like contacts because they irritate my eyes. So,
let's see. SKYFIGHTER 2 says Bill Barkley.
I wouldn't say no, but I don't know what it would be.
We have to get the first one made.
Yeah, the first thing's first, man. Alec Peters, he deserves what he gets.
No. I can't.
Oh, you're trying not to get.
I have nothing to say about that.
Why aren't the leads black and gay? From what? From my movie? Oh.
Yeah, that was.
I don't mind. You don't have to delete that. I don't mind that.
No, because that was just a trolling question. But you can. If you have a good answer for that.
I would like more than I would like in the feature that both characters not be white. I want some racial diversity, and with only 2 characters, you can't have every race. But I would like it to, if it's in the 26th century, to look like what we think humanity will look like at that time. You know, why aren't they gay? I don't, it's because part of it is, I don't know, that's a longer story, but well,
I think
I'll tell you the real answer. it is a challenge of our culture that we're finally getting to the point where we can have characters who are gay, and that's not the subject of the movie.
Right.
And that is something to aspire to. And I think in this particular project, I'm not crafty or shrewd enough or talented enough to figure out how to do that. But it's not in really like a love story anyway. I mean, it's more of a human love story. You should try Retinax 5. I'm allergic to it.
There was a good question there that I have you seen the Terminator Dark Fate trailer?
I have.
And what'd you think?
I hope it's good. I don't bet against Jim Cameron.
No.
I love some of the actors. I love Mackenzie Davis.
I do too. Yeah,
she's great. But at the same time, there's a sort of, oh wow, he's a metal guy, and he just did something cool with turning into metal.
Yeah,
it's a little stale. I don't know. Don't bet against Jim Cameron. Don't bet against Jim Cameron.
Oh, this is interesting. Kino Carretti says, but before I go to sleep, I wanted to ask you, how much of your life do you put into your writing before the film?
I don't know. I don't know that. I mean, it's my working life. I have a wife and 2 kids, so that's.
But your Martha's Vineyard script is. Really
that's what you mean.
No, yeah, like
how much do I put my own experiences into it?
Yeah. How much is how informed by your own life is your stories, even a science fiction story?
This, because it's science fiction, it's not. I've never been in the military. It's not really informed by that. But you always put things into it that happen to you, or your understanding of the world and of our culture and of humanity. So you always put yourself into it.
Sylvan89 says, what type of aliens will they be fighting, and what kind of gadgetry will they have to work with? Also, is this like a futuristic space cowboy type of film?
You don't really see the aliens. It's more like an Edge of Tomorrow type thing. What kind of gadgetry? I don't know. It's spaceship stuff. You know, they use their spaceship. It's future, not really a space cowboy thing, more of a space military thing. Story looks generic. I say nay to you, nay. It is, but that's actually a totally fair point. I mean, I'm asking people to watch a 40-second trailer, and I'm talking about it for 2 hours, and it does in fact use a lot of generic elements. It's all about, this is what high concept has done to us,
right?
Because it's about how you tell the story. And people are always like, it's a penguin who turns into an assassin? Awesome. It's like, no, can it just be about people, please?
AJ Lancaster says, do you think your full film has more international appeal than domestic?
I don't know.
I'd see it as something that would be marketed by 10 cents.
I don't know what 10 cent is. I don't know the answer to that. And a lot of that would depend on the actors.
Have you watched Space Battleship Yamato?
I've never seen that. I was a Robotech guy. In fact, I hired Richard Epcar to do a voice, which you can hear the voice in the trailer. He's the voice of Lunk and Robotech and Bato and Ghost in the Shell. I do not work the weather. Weather is irrelevant to me as far as when I'm writing.
Lucas, do you ever get hung up on trying to imagine?
Wait, Donnie Pearson, thank you for your service, or your family service. I have to say that. But it's true, actually. It's totally true.
It is.
Have I watched Spike Lee's? Have you watched Spies? I thought someone said, have you watched Spike Lee? I watched Spike Lee on an airplane. I watched Spies of Like Us in a theater, man.
Me too. Jeff Lawrence says, Lucas, do you ever get hung up trying to imagine how it will be hundreds of years in the future when it's really just a wild guess? For example, Star Trek barely addresses transhumanism.
No, I don't actually, because you're writing a story about people, and you pick your world, and you pick the important thing about the world that's relevant to the story, and you do a beginning, middle, and end, and it's not. AJ
Lancaster says 10 Cent is the marketing company that made Venom big in China. That's okay. Good to know.
That's good to know.
I thought you're like, I'll give you my 10 cents.
Someone smoking grass?
Probably.
All right.
Let's see. Thank you, Lucas, for your shout out to me and my family.
You're very welcome.
That's very welcome.
How difficult is creating a script? Okay, imagine you're plunging down an elevator shaft and you have to pull an orange out of your brain through your nose. That's writing a script. It's hard. It's hard work, and it takes a lot of practice. Spies Like Us, it's not very good.
Not very good.
I like the Elmer Bernstein score.
Well, listen, everyone, we've been doing this for 2 hours. I want to say Yoda's smoking weed.
Oh,
back there.
Yoda's smoking.
Yoda's smoking weed. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Lukas Kendall for being a great guest.
Thank you for
my
putting me
second
on
guest.
television.
And for all of you, if you're interested in seeing more about SKYFIGHTER, there's an Indiegogo campaign running so we can make a Blu-ray. And for what, $5, they can get a download of the movie. They can see the movie.
They can.
So if you want to donate $5 and see the SKYFIGHTER short,
and if you liked me on the show, tell Rob to have me back.
Yeah, if you like Lukas on the show, I'll have him back. And I want to remind all of you that these Robservations chats are brought to you by Lucky Tiger Men's Grooming Products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And if you guys want, or you girls want to go to Lucky Tiger, you can go to getluckytiger.com. You can go to their website, and if you punch in PGS when you check out for Post-Geek Singularity, you get 20% off your order. So thank you, Lucky Tiger. And as always, I want to remind you that every person you meet has a story to tell that you haven't heard yet, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, I'm going to bring this to an end. I will be back tomorrow.
But I'm like the John Lennon guy saying, yeah, that's not really interesting. It's like McCartney, Lennon, right?
It is interesting. You got to give people a chance. So I want to thank you all for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel, those who send in super chats. And I will be back tomorrow at noon with another episode of Robservations.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for being here. And as always, have a better day.